Are the Chicago Cubs are in turmoil, or are they just in the season-long funk? We'll give you the answer after the video heating Milwaukee Brewers. On the south side, the White Sox avoided getting swept by Seattle, but they still have a chance to rebound on their latest West Coast road trip as they'll face the San Francisco Giants starting tonight. In basketball, the New York Knicks go up 2-love against the Cleveland Cavaliers, while the Oklahoma City Thunder responded with a Game 2 monstrous win over the San Antonio Spurs. In football, Matthew Stafford signs a big one-year extension. What does that mean for a certain franchise quarterback here in Chicago? And we'll have the news on the unfortunate death of Kyle Busch and a whole lot more as a special edition of Second City Sports. The Memorial Day edition starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, drive into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr. his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Bennington. No chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a pass. Buzelis with the fake on the drive.
Motions left. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb Groves, middle of the field, Loveland catch. Breaks away the 30. Loveland 20. Loveland 10. Loveland end zone. Touchdown Bears.
Welcome to the special Memorial Day holiday weekend edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she over here. This is Sidney Brown. You know this me over here. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And please hype the video if you can right here on Sports Zone Chicago's YouTube page. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio show, you got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those in the section, we'll get the up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to be able to be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE, live entertainment game. That's checking us out live in living color right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:22 p.m. Central Standard Time. But as always, much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will provide.
We'll be by you with some of the best here on Second City Sports, of course, as we remembered the sudden NASCAR star Kyle Busch after his very sudden passing yesterday. We'll talk about that. We'll also do some sports media news. Excuse me. And also, of course, Matt Stafford got a nice big moolah for a one-year deal and a few other things in the NFL, as well as Bears Stadium update, because basically we have to. Of course, in the NBA playoffs, a pivotal game 3 between the Thunder and the Spurs as the series goes to San Antonio, while the Knicks take a 2-0 lead over the Cavs. We'll talk about their massive comeback in game 1. As far as the Stanley Cup is concerned, the Habs will try to even their series tonight, while the Habs dominate the Carolina Hurricanes. but it'll have that and so much more. But first, the Cubs will try to rebound from their sweep at the hands of the Brewers. They faced Houston at Wrigley later this afternoon. So, hopefully in a little bit here, about just under an hour from now. So hopefully maybe they'll try to snap up their 5-game losing streak. Now, Pedro Ramirez, their top prospect, has arrived in Chicago, is at Wrigley right now as we speak. He could play the series. He might not. He could be the spark that the Cubs need. Who knows? Matt Shaw is actually in on the IL with a back injury, so that's one of the reasons why, to coincide with that move, Ramirez was brought up. And it's really been the pitching that's been the issues for the Cubs. One of those struggling pitchers, Davis in Thailand, he goes on the bump in about an hour from now against Pisner Getty. So, he's one of their top pitchers. How about the Astros? So this is going to be a tough matchup for the Cubs in that offense. But, I've seen Cubs fans freak out, and, David Kapler is about to, go crazy. So, Sid, what do you think about that whole, about the Cubs, what they're going through right now, this little slump that they're in?
I think both things can be true. What I said in the open, this team is in a funk, which is obvious to see, and I think they're in turmoil a little bit as well. I'll start with the funk first. That's FUNK for those of you scoring at home. We did not cuss. 2-9 your last 11 games with runners in scoring position. You've been a stellar 144. That's right. And we saw all the ugliness in this past series against the Milwaukee Brewers, which you ended up being swept. You score a total of 6 runs in that series. Let me give you the run totals for the Cubs. In game 1, you scored 3 runs. Game 2, 5. Game 3 on Wednesday, 0. So you scored a total of 5 runs in the series. And game 1 could have went your way, even though you lost 9-3. You have runners in scoring position in the failed comeback attempt on Monday. Of course, Tuesday, the same scenario occurred again. LaKeena, I know some people say, "Oh, move Ian Happ down the lineup." Bench PCA, we'll get to him in just a second. Craig Counsell doesn't know what he's doing. As we said for the last few shows, Craig Counsell is working with the shorthand, especially when it comes to the bullpen. The lineup, I don't think it's that much of a problem. I know they can't hit with runners to score position right now, but I don't think the lineup is as bad as people think. I know people want to bag on Dansby Swanson because of the money he makes, but he still gives you 24 home runs at 75 to 80 RBIs a year. So I wouldn't put the pressure on him. You put the pressure on him and some of those other top guys, Seiya Suzuki to a lesser extent as well. Those guys have to get going. Now, the turmoil, P. Crow Armstrong, he got fined about what he said, White Sox fan, last Sunday at Sox Park. We mentioned it on last show. We won't mention it here, of course. In my opinion, he misplayed 2 balls, especially the one on Wednesday where he scooped up. He tried to act like he was scooping up, and then he ran back like a days ago. If I was Craig Counsell, I would have pulled his ass in and said, "Hey, like the late great Bobby Cox did, now Hall of Famer Andrew Jones back in '98 when the Cubs faced the Braves in that Kerry Wood great Mannix game. You need to be taught a lesson. You're one of the faces of our team. You're one of the faces of Major League Baseball. You cannot go out there last days ago like that. You need to learn your lesson. Go sit your ass down." Now, with that off day that you had yesterday, I hope that Craig Counsell and Pico Armstrong sat down and had the heart-to-heart talk. We'll see if PCA's in the lineup today. We'll give you the lineup in just a moment. But, we all had to go through those. Hopefully that PCA off the field, but on the field as well.
Yeah, those errors that he had in that rubber match of that game. Just not, look, I think that day off for the Cubs was something that they desperately needed, because I think that you can tell that they were exhausted, with everything, especially with the Brewers. Basically, everything kind of went their way. So, Mizorowski dominated the Cubs in game 2. So, yeah, of course, that's really, kind of like the whole thing. Now, should Cubs fans freak out? No. Should they be worried? Yes. Look, there's still 161 games left. This is the ebb and flows of the season. So it's not like, we're not even like a third. We're not even a third through the season yet. So it's not time to panic just yet. Better to have this type of thing still early, because we're still in May, folks. I know that it seems like the season's been forever, but early in May. And I think, folks need to kind of realize that this is sort of the ebbs and flows of the baseball season. They're 1.5 back, the Brewers right now. They got a tough series of their own coming up this weekend, but we'll talk about that in a second here. But this is Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you, talking Cubs and their woes here. The whole thing with the bats and stuff and the pitching. Show didn't have his best showing in that rubber match, so unfortunately, the Brewers were able to give all they can handle as well. So I think it's one of those things where you just go, look, this is just sort of stuff what happens. Now, if by the end of the month, then if you want to say that they end up losing 5 of their next 7 or something like that, they can kind of go in panic mode. But this is sort of one of those things where the season is really just how it is. Look, sometimes you get hot, sometimes you get cold. Sometimes things go your way, sometimes things don't. I mean, it's sort of one of those things where, look, you just, unfortunately, those things can happen. Now, look at your pitcher matchup. I talked about the matchup of today. It's going to be coming on about an hour from now. Then, of course, you got Colin Ray hoping to rebound against KY Team in Game 2 of that series. And also, speaking of Shota, he gets the rubber match of that series up against Peter Lambert. So if the Cubs can win 2 out of 3 against Houston, Houston's kind of the same. They're kind of the same. Both the Cubs have been on. They've kind of been up, and then they've been down too a lot this year. So they should be able to get 2 out of 3. Winning 2 out of 3 could that could be scoring all types of confidence as you go into this their series against Pittsburgh coming up. So yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things where you got to go back on the road. You're going to be in your division. So yeah, just try to get 2 out of 3, then maybe can build from that.
Give us a couple of players that you're watching for this weekend to hopefully get the Cubs offense turned around.
I'm looking at Talion. I mean, I know he hasn't had the best showing. He pitched batting practice in that last game against his last start against the White Sox. I'm looking for him to have a good start in this game. Houston, like I said, Houston still has guys, so it's sort of one of those things where you're just like, okay, maybe maybe facing that lineup could be something, just what he needed. So we'll see. I look at the bats. I mean, I think if PCA, that day off, hopefully he was able to reset and forget about all the noise that's going on. Forget about what that fan said, and hopefully he can kind of get back to the PCA that he was showing during that Cubs streak within the last couple of weeks.
Couple of batters for me that I'm looking forward to watching this weekend. Hopefully they have big series. Ian Happ and Michael Busch, both left-handed batters. I know Ian Happ's a switch hitter, but both of them primarily left-handers. Hopefully they can smash the ball out of the ballpark. It's going to be more than decent weather this weekend, so hopefully they can take advantage of that. You talked about Jameson Taillon. Yes, he needs to have a better start today. He leads the league in home runs given out in terms of starting pitchers, but I'm looking at Shota Imanaga, your starter for Sunday. I don't think this is going to be a windfall for Shota. I know his record's at 500, but he's pitched better than that this year. I'm looking for him to have a better rebounding performance on Sunday against the Astros. His last start against Milwaukee earlier this week, I don't think that was a rapid of it. He didn't pitch bad, but it's just this offense didn't back him up. Hopefully he'll get it turned around this coming Sunday in this start in the season in the series finale against Houston.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Of course, since we won't be on Monday, so we'll talk about a little bit before we go to. I know we're up against it. Going to paper. We'll talk about the Pittsburgh series. They go back on the road. They go to Pittsburgh. Memorial Day got Ben Brown against Midzinski in that pitching matchup. Carmen Midzinski. We'll see what happens. Pittsburgh's been in the free fall lately. Eric Cabrera, of course, back on track after that blister in his last start. He'll face Braxton Ashcroft in the Tuesday game of that series. Wednesday, got Talion again against Bubba Chandler. And then after that should be a good one, Colin Ray against Paul Skeens. So that should be interesting, the rubber match. Hopefully, if you're the Cubs, you can win at least 2. I mean, 3 out of 4 would be better. I know Pittsburgh's been had given them trouble the couple of times they played this year, but hopefully, they can use this time to kind of just hopefully they can get back on track and start another big winning streak.
At least on paper, the Pittsburgh Pirates are for real, but their offense is very good this year. Don't We talked about it back in April, again when Pittsburgh rolled into town. Connor Griffin, I know he didn't do anything with the bat when the Pirates were here last month, but he's really come on that rookie shortstop. Don't forget about Brian Reynolds, Marcelo Zuna, a veteran. He's swinging the big stick uh, very well. Paul Skeens, he's owned the Cubs throughout his short tenure in Major League Baseball. I think he only has, I believe, one loss against Chicago. We'll check up on that, but he's always a tough go. He almost pitched a no-hitter a couple of starts ago against Milwaukee. So he's a very good pitcher, a very good power pitcher. So for the Cubs, hopefully they take care of business against the Astros this weekend. Like I said, the Pittsburgh series is very important, a big four-gamer. Like you said, if you could get 3 out of 4, that'll be great. If you could swim it, that'd be even better. But realistically, I expect it to take at least 3 out of 4.
All right, so we're going to really quick, of course, we're talking about the White Sox. And, the White Sox had their struggles out in Seattle. They lost 2 out of 3. They should have swept, but thank you, Luis Castillo. You should have, the Mariners should have swept that series. But they go to the Bay Area to face a Giants team. They should be able to get back on track there. And the rest of baseball, as looks like the Dodgers might be starting to figure things out. And and maybe the Yankees, they're starting to kind of fall off a little bit. And the Phillies had a tough showing as well. They had a tough week this week. And that and a whole lot more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. More Diamond Talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey Maggette, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Back to a special edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. See it, the kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG is CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
As we continue the baseball discussion, both the Cubs and the White Sox and the rest and best of Major League Baseball from this past week, you can definitely hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
White Sox hoping to get back on track in the Bay Area with their series and against the Giants in San Fran starting tonight after losing 2 out of 3 to the Mariners. Yeah, I mean, look, they were in both. You could probably say they probably could have won Wednesday's game, but Johnny Peralta, he hit his first major league home run to seal that series win for the Mariners. To the White Sox credit, they did come back and beat the Mariners on Tuesday. So they probably, like I said, the Mariners should have swept that series. Like I said, Luis Castillo was pitching batting practice in that 9th inning, but I digress. But yeah, look, they hope to get back on track against San Francisco. They've kind of been up and down, so there's no reason why they shouldn't win 2 out of 3 in the Bay Area. The pitching, Davis Martin, they got him on the buff this weekend in this series. So I think the White Sox should be okay here, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that series against the Giants starting tonight.
Just to review quickly of the Seattle series, of course, Noah Schultz, who will take the bump on Sunday, I believe. His last start, the first game of the series this past Monday, he was very impressive. We talked about on our last episode that he needed to cut the walks down. Well, he cut him down to a 0 pitch, LaKeena. 6 strikeouts, 0 walks in his start against Seattle this past Monday, but the offense did not back him up as the White Sox lose the opener 6-1. This past Tuesday, as you mentioned, the Mariners melted down in the ninth. Their bullpen, along with Josh Naylor's bad glove at first base, the White Sox come from behind for a 2-1 win. They were not hit halfway through the game, but they found a way to win. Anthony Kay was very impressive in that start on Tuesday. Interesting move that manager Will Venable has to get credit for. Sir Anthony Dominguez did not go in there for the save. Who was in there for the save? Grant Taylor. Grant Taylor, unlike Sir Anthony Dominguez this year, 1, 2, 3, striking out the side in the 9th inning. Clean inning for a White Sox win. And, of course, you mentioned the series finale this past Wednesday where the Sox tried to come back at the end, but they fell short, leaving 9 runners on base. We all know that the White Sox had the Thunder bats with Munetaka Murakami, who had an RBI single in that game on Wednesday. And you have the big bat in close to Montgomery, but it's the other guys like Sam Antonacci, Derek Hill, Trisha Peters, the former Savannah Bennett, who's been very good not only with his bat, but with his glove. It's other guys contributing to that White Sox lineup. And I said to somebody the other day with that win against Seattle earlier this week on Tuesday, the White Sox, at times, the bats are not going to fly via the home run. You got to find other ways to score, and this team is starting to do that. They should continue that momentum this weekend against the San Francisco Giants. They faced a better team. You know where you are. San Francisco, they're not as hot as they were a year ago, even though they finished at 81-81. You have a first-year manager over there. Like you said, Davis Martin starting off the series tonight. He pitched great 1 week ago tomorrow against the Cubs in his last start. I know it's not called Pat Bell Park anymore, wherever the hell that new corporate name is. It's traditionally a pitcher's park, so the White Sox will have to do what they did against the Seattle Mariners. Find ways to score runs, hit and run, bunt, steal bases, be smart but aggressive at the same time on the base paths. We know that San Francisco knows how to play in that ballpark. The White Sox should do the same thing offensively like they did against Seattle. So, like I said, the pitching has been a strong point this year for the White Sox. Let's see if they can continue and be smart enough on the base paths to get runners across home plate.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting part here because San Francisco, like you said, they know the Oracle Park is the name, of course. But so they should be able to win 2 out of 3. I know a sweep might be a bit of a stretch because, like I said, they don't play in that park very often. The Giants know that park very well, so we'll have to wait and see if like Murakami and Maedrop and those guys. Hopefully they'll be able to kind of like at least win 2 out of 3. And Davis Martin, especially, he's been in discussion for Cy Young. I think it's a little bit early to talk about that, type of thing. Like I said, get back to me by the All-Star break if we still be able to keep it up, especially, against this Giants lineup. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does and what the rest of that pitcher does. Because the advantages should be that it's a pitcher's ballpark. So hopefully the White Sox will take advantage. Speaking of Mr. Davis Martin, like I said, he takes a bump tonight against Trevor McDonald. That should be a fun matchup there. Could be a good pitcher's duel. Eric Fetty against a veteran Adrian Hauser. He's had his struggles lately, so they should be able to take advantage of that. The White Sox, Noah Schultz, and Robbie Ray, another veteran pitcher who's seen his struggles. So, the White Sox should be able to take care of business against the Giants before coming back home against Minnesota. Speaking of Anthony Kay, he takes a bump Memorial Day on Monday. He faces. I want to make sure I get I'm looking at it right there. Zebby Matthews in that game, out at G rates. Then you got Sean Burke against Joe Ryan in the Tuesday matchup of that twin series. Of course, Davis Martin's back at the bump again against Kyler Periup. And Eric Fetty finishes up that. Of course, no pitcher has been announced for that matchup on next Thursday. So, yeah, I think that the White Sox could definitely take advantage of it because they're going to be, after this Giants series, they're going to be facing teams in their division. They got the Twins and they got Detroit. And then they have the Twins again over at Target Field. So it's setting up for the White Sox could be able to get some home wins in division. So this is the perfect opportunity for the White Sox to show what they're made of.
Yeah, I know the White Sox have been. I think they're 3 games over 500 at home. I think they're 1 or 2 games under 500 on the road. They show that they can play well on the road as well. So, like you said, they should on paper take care of the San Francisco Giants. As we said before, the end of May starts their tough stretch of teams against their division. We all know where the record has been over the last few years with the White Sox against their division. They only played the division twice this year. That was Kansas City twice in there. They won five games against Kansas City so far this year. So, like you said, Minnesota, I'm not impressed by them. Their record is what they say they are. It says it is right now. So they should be able to take care of the Twins, at least get to the minimal in that 4-game series. Of course, you have Detroit here next weekend. We'll preview that series next week. But, take care of the Giants first and then come home to some home cooking. Those bats should return via the home run, and we'll see what happens. But Chris Getz, the GM, has some tough decisions to make because Everson Pereira, the outfielder, and Austin Hayes, your veteran outfielder who was injured early in the year, both of them will be coming back soon off the injuries, probably by the time we hit these airways next week. So a couple of guys may go down, like Luis Angel Acuna, Jordan Hicks. Me personally, out of the bullpen should be cut and released, but you're paying them $9 million a year, so he may not be on the chopping block. We'll see about that. But the White Sox just continue to play good baseball. There, I believe 18-9 or 18-10 ever since the 7-13 start. So they're playing some good baseball. They should be able to take care of the Giants. You do that, and then it sets up for, like you said, the most important home stretch so far this season. You can lean towards June.
Yeah, tough break though for Kyle Teal. He had a setback in that injury, and now he's back on the IL again. So tough break for him. And it's kind of a lot of White Sox fans were hoping to see him back perhaps maybe this weekend, but that's not going to happen. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, sitting around with you as we talk the rest of baseball as a whole, and we'll start out there in the NL West. The Dodgers, they're starting to kind of get it going. They win 2 out of 3 against the rivals, their individual rivals, the Padres. Look, we've known their struggles this year with injuries and stuff. It looks like a lot of those guys are coming back. Shohei Ohtani looks like he's back on track. He pitched 5 sharp innings and hit a home run on his first pitch, helping his own cause as they're able to take that series against the Padres. Because usually it's the reverse. The Padres usually get the Dodgers number, especially at home. But they did the opposite, thanks to some good pitching and hitting from some unsung heroes.
Yeah, we watched closer Mason Miller of the Padres melt down in that series finale on that second game on Tuesday. Excuse me, with that throwing error at first base, called the pinch runner for the Dodgers. Took advantage of it, still in second base. Of course, he came around to score to have the game winner for the Dodgers. And like you mentioned in the series finale, this past Wednesday, Shohei Ohtani showed what he could do he could do on the mound. So, as we said, the Dodgers still going through injuries. We know who's on the IL, we know who's coming back, but it's your role players like Teoscar Hernandez, Call, as I mentioned. Their center fielder, Andy Pages, he's swinging a hot stick this year. Also, too, he's doing it with his glove out there in center field as well. So you have the role players that are picking up the slack as well. Even though your pitching is starting to pick it up as well with Yamamoto, Roki, Sasaki, it's what's going to carry this Dodgers team through. And you mentioned about San Diego in the past; they usually beat the Dodgers at Petco Park, but this wasn't the case this time, and that's why I really don't take San Diego seriously to win this division, because every time you're in the big spot against the Dodgers, you fall flat on your face. So, and this week was just another bad example of that.
Yeah, not a good waste of opportunities there for the Padres out there, at home. So yeah, just a brutal series. Now the Diamondbacks are starting to kind of get it going. They've won 5 in a row. They swept the Giants at home. They took the first game of their series against Colorado, thanks to some timely hitting. Corbin Carroll, he's been hitting the ball very well lately. Their pitching's been really solid. Kate Marte, had another good showing as well in that series. So yeah, they, Nolan Arenado, remember him? He hit a grand slam in that first game of that Giants series. So yeah, it looks like the D-backs are starting to get it going here. So could they perhaps maybe sneak up there, perhaps maybe challenge the Dodgers and the Padres in the NL West?
I'll use your phrase. Check back in with me on them in another month. They're getting some decent starting pitching, but as you mentioned, the most important thing is their bats are starting to wake up. Not just with Arenado, but also too with Corbin Carroll. I know he got hurt. He got nicked up the other day, but he got hit. I guess he got hit in the head with a baseball, but it looks like he's going to be okay. So they have some young hitters in that lineup. Don't forget about Ketel Marte as well. So the bats are waking up. We'll see if that can continue.
Going back to the Central, the NL Central, the Cardinals. They lose 2 out of 3 to Pittsburgh at home. So they did. I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see if the Cardinals can be a legit contender in NL Central. The Pirates, we talked about the Pirates earlier, so that it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. Cincy, like I said, I don't want to give up on Cincy, but they've been inconsistent, so I don't know what to think about that Cincy team. But yeah, they did have a good week this week. So yeah, so maybe they could be right there in the thick of it. They did win 2 out of 3 against Philadelphia. They needed that series more than Philly did. I know Philly, they've kind of been on a roll lately. I know they're going to be kicking themselves that they had some opportunity. They had some opportunities, perhaps maybe stay. They're still within striking distance with Atlanta. Like I said, they do play Atlanta this next month, I should say. So hopefully maybe they can stay with that and gain some ground there. They've had their struggles. Speaking of Atlanta, they did have a nice week this week, sweeping them. Well, not sweeping, but they did win 3 out of 4 against Miami, and looks like they're doing their thing there as well in that NL East.
Yeah, Ronald Acuna Jr., who came back over last weekend from suffering the hamstring injury. He exited yesterday's game injuring his left thumb. Hopefully, it's not too serious. So it's another bag break for the Atlanta Braves. He's their 5-tool player MVP candidate. So hopefully everything's all right with his left thumb going forward. But as we mentioned, they have other guys that's picking up the slack in that lineup. Michael Harris. You still have Austin Riley, Drake Baldwin, your NL Rookie of the Year from last year, and you still have Matt Olson covering first base as well. So Atlanta still have the guys that can pick it up, but they're going to need Ronald Acuna Jr. In the long run. Like I said, hopefully that thumb injury is not too serious. Chris Sale is doing his thing, as you mentioned, head at the top of that pitch rotation, but. Give some credit to Bryce Elder as well and Spencer Strider, who made it back from the injury list. He pitched well yesterday, completing that series win for the Atlanta Braves.
Going to the AL, back to the AL, of course, the AL East, the Yankees. I know Yankee fans are still, they split their series with Toronto, and injuries and inconsistencies. It's just killing the Yankees at this point. Meanwhile, Tampa, they had a nice week. They've won 4 in a row. They swept Baltimore. I thought Baltimore was going to win a couple of those games, but okay. But like I said, I'm at that point. Look, I'm at that point where I say, especially with all this stuff. I mean, get back to me in about a month with some of these teams, because I don't know if Tampa. They're not going to spend any money, so they're probably going to stand pat when the trade deadline comes around. In a couple of months, about a month and a half from now. But it's sort of one of those days where the Yankees, you better try to get it going here, because if not, the Rays could. I'm not saying they're going to run away with the AL East, but it's not looking good for them at this point.
Yeah, we'll get to the rest of the schedule to wrap up this hour coming up. But the Yankees that you mentioned, they have a big series against Tampa Bay. How fitting this weekend at New Yankee Stadium. And we mentioned about they've been suffering through injuries throughout this season too. They get Garrett Cole, who's going to start the series opener tonight. So who needs this series the most? I think the New York Yankees, because of their stories. You saw it against Toronto earlier this week. I know Toronto won the series finale last night in a 2-0 shutout fashion, but the Yankees need this series just a little bit more because of their injuries and of their pitching being up and down. I know they lost the Subway Series last week, 1 week ago this weekend to the New York Mets on the road, but just from a confidence standpoint, the Yankees need this series more than Tampa. On the other side for Tampa, if they could take at least 2 out of 3, that's definitely going to send their confidence skyrocketing. I'm not saying they're going to run away with it, like you said, if they win this series this weekend, but that's definitely going to give a huge boost to their young squad.
And then any young squad, you definitely need a boost. So we'll see what happens in that series. Coming up, it is huge. Now going to the Central, the Guardians have won 6 in a row. They swept the Tigers in their 4-gamer. They do have a tough series coming up against Philadelphia as they continue their road trip. So, I mean, look, Cleveland, we knew that the Cleveland would be the favorite in that division, even though, yes, we both picked the Tigers. But yeah, Cleveland's looking really good. I mean, Martinez got that big triple in that 10th inning in that game, that fourth game. And, that's like a Tiger continues. So we'll get to the Tigers in a second. But Travis Bazina, Jose Ramirez, of course, and their pitching. I mean, they've looked at the Guardians. Look, like I said, I'm not going to say they're going to work with the AL Central, but it looks like they've got the consistency that they've been consistent the last couple of weeks, and so they've looked really good.
Yeah, you mentioned about Martinez. I don't know if you saw the catch that he made in left field yesterday to take away a possible extra bases yesterday from the Tigers. But the Guardians have very good starting pitching. They have a very good underrated bullpen, and like you said, their bats were starting to heat up in that Tigers series. So, can they run away with it? Yes, but I don't think they will because of what's been going on the South Side in Chicago. And if Detroit can ever get their act together, I don't know if they will. Detroit could make it interesting, but Cleveland has the ability to win this division. Now, can they compete against the rest of the American League? I think they can, but like you mentioned with Tampa Bay just a moment ago, they don't have the big budget like the big markets teams do, so it limits what they could do. But they play a fine brand of baseball, and that's why they the leaders in the clubhouse in AL Central right now.
Now Minnesota, they did, like you said earlier, they did beat the Astros 2 out of 3, so they're still right there in the thick of it. I don't know for how long. I know there's some turnover with their ownership, but we'll see what they do there. The Royals, they've just been brutal the last two games. Detroit, we knew we got an update for Tariq School. We'll say, hey, look, I'm not going to be back. I'm not going to be back in the next week, folks. So yeah, that's unrealistic. I know. I'm glad he was very honest on that in the interview yesterday. Going out west, the A's, the Oakland / Sacramento A's, wherever we call them here, they swept the Well, they took 3 out of 4 against the Angels. Now, as far as the Angels, Chris, our buddy Christine Macca's husband, hopefully he's not listening to this, but the Angels are now 6-24 over the last 30 games, and it's not that Trout has been there. Mike Trout's been there for all of them. That's the worst record over a 30-game span in MLB history by a team that had a multiple-time former MVP in all 30. So, yeah, not good times out there in the Southern California Angels, Los Angeles Angels, wherever we call them here. Texas had a nice week this week as well. 2 out of 3 against Colorado, of course. The Mariners took 2 out of 3 against the White Sox. So, yeah, I know the A's, they've got some great talent, but yeah, we'll see if they can hang on that very competitive AL West.
Speaking of the Oakland A's, as we call them on this show, shout out to JT again, who lost the no-hitter on Monday, and that's the only loss in that series for Oakland. 10 strikeouts, 1 walk, giving up 2 hits. But LaKeena, manager Mark Kotsay let the young kid finish the game. Of course, the Athletics were leading 1-0. Of course, Adam Frazier, the long good news part of this week for the Anaheim Angels, walks up with a 2-run home run for the game winner. Your heart goes out to JT again. I think that's only the 3rd time since 1900 that's happened that a pitcher lost the no-hitter going into the 9th inning and ended up losing the game. So shout out JT again. Still a great performance, even though it was a losing effort. For young teams like the White Sox and the Oakland A's, as we call them on this show, how you perform the next day is how you bounce back mentally. The Oakland A's did that by winning the remaining 3 games of that series.
Yeah, I know he was very disappointed, but I saw how excited he got after they ended up winning 3 out of 4. So, yeah, it sucks that you lose a no-hitter, especially in that fashion. But look, the important thing is that your team won the series. So, and he'll be back on the bullpen this weekend. So hopefully, get that out your mind and just try to do even better the next time.
Yeah, speaking of this weekend series, we'll start off with this weekend schedule. As LaKeena mentioned at the top of the segment, the Houston Astros will take on the Chicago Cubs from the friendly confines less than 20 minutes from now for those of you watching live. The first game will be on Apple TV Plus, and for those of you that will be working out doing other things, you can catch the replay if you have MLB.TV like yours truly does 2 hour and a half after the game concludes. So check that out. The other series for this weekend are as follows. Cleveland visits Philadelphia. St. Louis will visit Cincinnati. Tampa and the New York Yankees will get it on in the Bronx, as we mentioned earlier. Pittsburgh will face Toronto north of the border. Minnesota at Boston. The Pittsburgh-Toronto series, I think Paul's games will start tomorrow's game Saturday. Minnesota at Boston. The New York Mets will take on the Miami Marlins. Detroit will visit Baltimore. Tonight's series opener will be the second game of the Apple TV Plus doubleheader at 6:15. Other series there are as follows. Washington visits Atlanta. The Dodgers will visit Milwaukee. LaKeena's second favorite team, Seattle, will visit Kansas City. Texas will face the Angels. Oakland, as we call them on the show, will visit San Diego. And Colorado will visit Arizona. And, of course, the White Sox will visit San Francisco to take on the Giants.
Your national TV schedule this weekend, of course, the second game of that Houston Cubs series will be on ESPN Unlimited. The your FS1 game of the week tomorrow will be Seattle and Kansas City at 3:10. And your Fox Saturday night game of the week, St. Louis and Cincinnati, and also the Dodgers and the Brewers. I'm assuming here in Chicago, Dodgers and Brewers will be the game there. On Sunday, for Peacock, on the early game on Peacock, you got Pittsburgh and Toronto to finish up that series. And your Peacock game of the week, you got Texas and the Angels as they finish up that series.
Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 is just around the corner, right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the special Memorial Day weekend edition of the program. Matthew Stafford gets paid for 1 year by the Los Angeles Rams. What does that mean for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears moving forward? We'll discuss the first 2 games for both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals in the NBA playoffs. We'll do that hockey, and we'll have a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You listen to Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health? For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on a special Memorial Day weekend holiday edition of the program. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and here's again at IG.
As we kick off hour number 2 discussing the Bears in the NBA playoffs for this segment, if you have any questions or comments regarding those two subjects, you can definitely hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Okay, Bears stadium update. They'll keep it short and sweet. Of course, we already knew this. Governor J.B. Pritzker said this earlier this week. And I guess the Bears have finally said that that we've said for years, if not months, if not years, that doing a stadium in Chicago is not feasible. Kevin Warren made those comments when the Bears met up with the NFL yesterday for some meetings about the stadium updates. There really wasn't any updates. I know all the weird political stuff with the CT, teachers union and stuff like that, about the education funds or whatever. But I think, and also too, apparently, I guess the Hammond, Indiana site apparently is near a landfill. So I don't know if you're the Bears, I don't think you want your team playing near a landfill. So So I think it's gonna be Arlington Heights. They just got to get their crap together about that whole spending package that apparently, I guess the deadline is next week. This is almost the end of the month. So that's all I got for you with that whole thing about the Bears and stadium stuff.
Yeah, just real quickly, Keenan. I don't want to be I'm not going to say the barrier of bad news, but just a barrier of a reminder. Remember a few months ago, I think it was early this year, I think it was early this year, that we talked about when this whole Hammond situation came up. I said, use your common sense, sound like R. Kelly, but they like you said, their land is a wasteland out there. No disrespect to Hammond, Indiana, but how are you going to transform that city into a multi-billion-dollar stadium used for multiple events? That's such a small town. You really didn't scout that area well. They're being used just like the city of Chicago was being used to get that new stadium, Arlington Heights. So people that were hell bent over, oh, I'm not going to Indiana. They weren't going to Indiana in the first place. So, like you said, we know that this was coming for months now. So people could just give it a break now. Just waiting for Kevin Warren and George McCaskey to get the rest of the Bears staff to officially call a press conference and have those shovels officially in the ground.
Now, could it? Now,
that's all we waiting on.
Yeah, also, I know the shovels. They won't get shovels on the ground by the summer. That's not happening. But I guess you can probably go for it being maybe before the end of the year. Maybe it's more realistic. We'll have to wait and see. Now, as far as the rest of the NFL, a big contract extension for former reigning NFL MVP and also Super Bowl champ Matt Stafford. He and the Rams reached a 1 year, $55 million extension that's attached to this is not the extension that's coming up with the season. It's attached to 2027, so he's going to be playing 2 more years. It's as much as $60 million in incentives, $40 million in the 40. That's an addition to $40 million that's guaranteed for this upcoming season. Of the new $55 million extension, $5 million is a roster bonus that is fully guaranteed at signing. That the other $50 million guarantee will be at the start of the 27 season, and also includes $5 million each year in the incentives tied to playoff success. So lots of incentives here. That's $105 million remaining on his contract, so they'll be able to move some money around. So it shouldn't affect them in the salary cap too much. The Rams. So, I know that I guess they'll put the speculation that when the Rams drafted Ty Simpson a few weeks back in the NFL draft, I know there were some people say, oh, Sean McVay wasn't very happy, blah, blah, blah. So I guess, this will set the record straight on that, at least for the next couple of years.
Yeah. This coming year could be Stafford's last year. Heaven forbid that he suffers a serious injury. But as well as I do and everybody else who watches NFL football that the Rams have been knocking on the door to get back to the Super Bowl the last 2 or 3 years. Of course, they picked up Trent McDuffie from the Kansas City Chiefs via trade. You saw what they did in the draft there. So they have a Super Bowl made ready roster. And so Matthew Stafford is a big part of it. When he's healthy, he's definitely a top 5 quarterback in the league when he's healthy. I know he's not mobile anymore because of his age, but that guy is still very good. But the question that I have is, as we bring it here to Chicago, and Caleb Williams, I know he's going into year 3 of his rookie contract, and we assume that if he stays healthy, which he has done so far through his first 2 years, we don't give him enough credit for that. Caleb Williams has played in every game, gone through 2 head coaches. It's him and Ben Johnson. It seems like they're tied at the hip, at least as of last year. JT Perry, I think he was interviewed by good folks at WGN TV earlier this week that said that Caleb Williams is handling criticism a little bit better than around this time last year. So that's good to see. But assuming that the Bears make it to the playoffs again next year, whether they win the division or not, assuming that Caleb finally passes for 4,000 yards in the season, continuing to grow like we saw him last year, he's definitely going to get that contract extension. He's currently making $9.8 million right now. LaKeena, with the Stafford extension, what does this mean for Caleb in about 2 to 3 years from now? Do you think he'll set the market? I think on paper I would say yes, but how much will it cost? And you've seen what the Bears moves that they made over the last couple of years. So I think they'll continue to make after this year. It's going to set the tone of what Caleb is going to make going forward.
Yeah, I think it really is. It has to be consistently with the numbers too, and that's really going to be the thing and how that market extends. So this is really going to be the interesting part about it, is that can he stay healthy, which so far he has done. So I think that's really going to depend on all that stuff, and if there is playoff success, if the Bears make the playoffs again. So it's really a lot of factors going to have to be had. He is going to get paid, but how much? That's really going to be the $1 million question.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of getting paid, here's your top 7 quarterbacks. Their average yearly average salary will be making for this upcoming year. Dak Prescott, $60 million. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, and Trevor Lawrence all will be making $55 million this year, followed by Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions, $53 million, Brock Purdy, $53, Justin Herbert, $52, Lamar Jackson, $52, Jalen Hurts, $51, Deshaun Watson, why I don't know, $46 million, Patrick Mahomes, $45, Daniel Jones, 44. Of course, Matthew Stafford, as you mentioned about the numbers earlier with that extension. So I think if Caleb throws for 4,000 yards this year, and that the Bears make it to the playoffs, whether they win the division or not, and let's just say they get to the NFC Championship game, and for conversational purposes only, heaven forbid, the Super Bowl this coming year or next year, that price tag is going to be pretty high. How high will it be? That's the $1 million. $25 million. Heaven forbid, I say price tag is Ryan Poles ready to pay the piper to do that, to keep him here?
Yeah, like I said, it's all going to depend on what happens these next 2 or 3 years. I mean, if he's consistent, if he stays hurt, yeah, he'll definitely get that 30 to 40 million. But again, if he got, knock on wood, gets hurt or is not productive, then yeah, I think that number is going to go down. We have to wait and see.
Yeah. And so, like I said, we'll keep an eye on what's going on with Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. I believe they have another round of mini camp days next week, so we'll talk about that on our show right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Speaking of Second City Sports, you listening and watching us right now, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. Let's transition over to the NBA playoffs. LaKeena, will start off in the Eastern Conference. Last night, Game 2 took place at Madison Square Garden, where the New York Knicks, in dominating fashion late in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, they pulled away from the Cleveland Cavaliers, beating the Cavs by the score of 109-93, taking commanding 2-0 lead in that best-of-7 series. LaKeena, let's go to what happened last night. Cleveland had a meltdown in Game 1, lost the game in the fourth quarter, got dominated in overtime, came out hot in Game 2, but as I just said, they lost their mojo, especially shooting from the outside, 9 of 35. That's not going to get it done. They lost their mojo at the end of the third quarter. The Knicks were able to pick it up again, dominating the fourth quarter. What did you learn about these two teams through these first 2 games of this series?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that that I'm sure Cleveland's going to be kicking themselves because they let that game slip away. Game 1. Our buddies, ABC7, New York's Ryan Field, Kate Rooney, our girl. She was over when we've had her on. She was over at San Francisco. Now she's in New York at Pix 11 News. They both say hello, by the way. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of one of those things where you're just like, yeah, the Cavs had their chance to steal that game at MSG. They took the crowd of it, but Jalen Brunson had other ideas, and the basketball guys had other ideas as well, if you want to look at it that way. Now, as far as this game from last night, struggles. 18 points from James Harden. That's not going to be enough. Evan Mobley, also Jared Allen, but your bench was pretty much well, we can say that about the bench too, Sid, because their bench was pretty much non-existent last night. So you can do that fart noise for the bench too. On the flip side for New York, double fart noise. 26 points for Josh Hart, which is a playoff for which. Well, no, not for Josh Hart. Josh Hart actually had a playoff career.
No, I'm talking about for Cleveland. That was for Cleveland in the bench.
Okay, yeah. Well, Josh Hart had a playoff career high with 26. Brunson had 19. And also Mikal Bridges as well. Cat had 18. So, yeah, I mean, look, the Knicks were able to take advantage of, feed off the crowd. Now they're going to go to Cleveland. And like I said, Cleveland has to win tomorrow. They have to. Because if not, if the Knicks get Game 3 tomorrow, it's going to be all she wrote.
I agree with you there. I know Cleveland has been a very good home team throughout these playoffs this year. And like you said, now their backs against the wall, especially after that meltdown in Game 1. They had a good start in Game 2 last night, but as I mentioned, they let it slip away with bad shooting from the outside last night. You mentioned the Knicks were able to take advantage of that. You mentioned about Josh Hart. We said this last year, that he was the top offensive rebounding guard in the league. Who's going to be that third guy for the Knicks when Karl-Anthony Towns and/or Jalen Brunson don't have it? It was Josh Hart last night, as you mentioned, with the 26 points, including 5-11 for downtown. OG Anunoby has been a very important glue. We said this last year when he was traded over from Toronto to the New York Knicks. You saw what he did there last year when Coach Tibbs was coaching him. This year he's doing a very good job once again. Great game from him last night with 14 points. And 3 assists and 4 rebounds, including 2 for 4 for downtown. So OG Anunoby's been one of those unsung heroes for the New York Knicks as well. You mentioned about Cleveland. You got nothing from your bitch last night. Dennis Schroeder, very disappointing. Max Struss, same thing, 5 points. Sam Romero, 0 for 7 for downtown. That's not going to get it done. As we say on this show all the time, especially in basketball, when you play it at home, your role players continue. Your role players they get hyped and they tend to feed off the home crowd. I expect that to continue tomorrow for the Cleveland Cavaliers because, like you said, if they don't get it done here with their backs against the wall in Game 3, you could say bye. Maybe not in the sweep, but maybe in the gentleman's suite in Game 5. So, but Cleveland, I expect the role players to play big tomorrow night.
It's actually also the Knicks' ninth straight playoff game win. 11 of the previous 12 made the finals. 7 of them won the title. So, the Knicks are hoping to join that list. So we'll see what happens. Now, a pivotal Game 3 in the Western Conference is commencing tonight. That you see that game on NBC and also streaming on Peacock. The Spurs with a great performance by Mr. Victor Wembanyama. I'm guessing that he was a little bit miffed that he didn't win the MVP trophy. I don't. Maybe. I think he said
that's my trophy.
He basically said that in the post game, 41 points, playoff career high, and that was just it was all him in on that overtime. 24 points for Dylan Harper. We'll talk about him. He was a little bit banged up in Game 2. SGA had 24 points. Jalen Williams had 26. Alex Caruso had 31 off the bench with ties a playoff career high for him now in Game 2. In that series, the Thunder responded 122, I should say 113. SGA had 30 points, 17 points for Caruso. It was Casey Wallace and Jared McCain who had 12 apiece off the bench. It was really their bench guys that kind of led the way there. So where do you see Game 3 tonight?
Okay. Before I give you my prediction of Game 3, just a quick review of the first 2 games of the series. Game 1, as you mentioned, Victor Wembanyama dominated. No one on the Oklahoma City front line could stop him. As we talked about on our last show on Monday, Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein will have to do something to stop him. They didn't do it in Game 1. They kind of neutralized him to an extent in Game 2. Chet Holmgren is one of the players that I'm watching this series. He had 8 points in Game 1. He had 14 points in Game 2, 13 points rather in Game 2, and he's going to have to step it up offensively a little bit more. I know Victor Wembanyama I know he's hard to stop, and it's easier said than done, but Oklahoma City is going to try to neutralize him just a little bit more. As you mentioned, the next 2 games will be in San Antonio. Jalen Williams, who was that glue guy, that third scorer last year, he barely played a handful of games this year in the regular season. He's starting to warm up. He had a big Game 1. Didn't do that much in Game 2 because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander stepped up his game in Game 2 with 30 points. I think that Oklahoma City's their depth is going to be tested because as well as I do that San Antonio, you saw this guy for San Antonio in Game 2, Harrison Barnes. I think you're going to see a little bit more tick from him as they go home for Games 3 and 4. You saw him a little bit in Game 2. You mentioned by Dylan Harper. Too bad he got nicked up there. Hopefully he'll be healthy for these next 2 games. De'Aaron Fox, will we see him in this series? It'll be nice, but those sprained ankles are always tricky, so you have to be careful with that. But San Antonio's role players, at least through the first 2 games, they have been very good. And so you mentioned, don't forget about Keldon Johnson, who we mentioned on our program this past Monday as well. He had 10 points coming off the bench. So I expect San Antonio's role players to continue this momentum as they go home tonight for Game 3. So if you ask him for my prediction right now, who's going to win Game 3, I think San Antonio. Now, if San Antonio wins both these games at home, I think this series is over. If Oklahoma City, which is very possible, they can steal both games in San Antonio, I think this series is over. But I expect this series to be a split. When we come back next week to do our 2 shows, we're going to be talking about a whole different series. But I think for tonight, I'm going with San Antonio.
Yeah, we know that the Thunder has had trouble playing over there for the Frost Bank Center. So I'm wondering, could they perhaps maybe switch that up a little bit and It's going to be interesting though. The Thunder. I mean, look, SGA, he can't do it by himself. I know Caruso's been stepping up. I know the other role players have stepped up. I know Holmgren's been banged up a little bit these playoffs. Basically most of the season. But yeah, you gotta, he has to, get it going. Hardenstein, same thing, and Lou Dort. I know Jalen Williams has had his troubles too, but I know he's banged up. But hopefully he'll be able to play tonight as well. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Now on the flip side for San Antonio, I mean, look, Julian Champagne, he hit some big shots in that game one. Hopefully he can get it going there as well. Harper, I know he's a little bit dinged up. Hopefully he'll be able to play. Barnes, where he has a lot of experience in this. Like I said, he won 2 titles with Golden State. So I'm wondering, he could bring that experience to them too. And maybe he might, you might see a nice career matchup here for him as well. So I think these two kids go either way. I agree there's going to be a split in these next two. And I think this is going to go 7. But it should be interesting to see what happens in these next 2 games. Now, the ratings for both these series have been just monster. On NBC, the Western Conference, their Eastern Conference Finals. I guess the highest rates, I think, in like 5 or 6 years, almost. And same thing with the Eastern Conference Finals on ABC. So yeah, I think if you're the NBA, though, I know these aren't the big markets. This is not LeBron or Steph or KD or those guys, but you've got stars. You've got Wemby, you've got SGA, of course, Donovan Mitchell, of course, Jalen Brunson and Cat from New York. So yeah, you've got the stars that are there. You got the big markets for the most part. So, but yeah, I think for NBA, you got to be feeling pretty good about these ratings, these early conference finals ratings.
Yeah, minus we'll take New York out of it for just a minute. Of course, they're the big market team, but you still have future stars in the game like Victor Wembanyama and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You're a back-to-back MVP, so they're the future. Mostly, Wembanyama is the future of the sport, so you have him in there. So people who haven't watched San Antonio this year, they're checking him out of curiosity, and I'm glad, at least for this year, that the Western Conference Finals are on NBC, so everybody gets a chance to watch both those teams, the Spurs and OKC. In the East, you mentioned about Cleveland's a small market, big city, but they're still a small market in terms of sports. Of course, you have New York City. You love them or you hate them. And of course, us as Bulls fans from the 90s that hated the Knicks when you and Jordan were going at it every year. It seems like they were going at it every year to battle for a trip to the NBA Finals to represent the East. So you have the New York factor, the number one market in the world there. So that's playing a factor as well. I know some folks outside of New York City, you want to see the Knicks win. Most don't. But you have your big market in there with the Knicks. So you have the future of the NBA on display in the Western Conference Finals with Victor Wembanyama of the Spurs. And it's been some compelling basketball, me personally, more so in the West than the East. But you've seen some compelling basketball through these first 2 games of these conference finals on both sides. And that's why the ratings, in my opinion, been so high.
Yeah, I think that's really, like I said, I think if you're the NBA, you're kind of shocked because some people thought that maybe LeBron and still Steph, all the players I mentioned, you thought that, people aren't going to tune in, but it seems like folks have tuned in, and a lot of the games have been competitive, so that's helped a lot too. So hopefully they can keep it going. Speaking of your TV schedule, OKC and San Antonio, pivotal game 3 will be on NBC and streaming on Peacock.
And tomorrow, Saturday on ABC, yes, the Inside the NBA guys will carry on the pre, post, and halftime shows the rest of the way through the conference finals and the NBA finals. Game time tomorrow night will be at 7 o'clock on ABC. That's game 3 between the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference final.
And of course, game 4, we'll see. We'll have control of that. But Sunday night, you've got NBC and Peacock, of course, game 4 between OKC and San Antonio.
And Monday, Memorial Day, we will have game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers live from Cleveland. That's at 7 o'clock on ESPN. So Memorial Day basketball will be at night. Unlike back in the day, it was on early in the afternoon.
Yes. Those those days. I know people yearn for those days, but It's all about getting that TV money, taking advantage of folks being off on that day. San Antonio, KC, Game 5. We'll see how it goes through this weekend. But yeah, that Game 5 of that series will be on NBC and Peacock, and that is your schedule for this week. Long weekend, I should say, in the NBA playoffs. There's the Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Steve Brown with you. I know we got a couple more minutes. The Bulls update on their head coaching search. Now, a couple of names have been floated around, perhaps. I'll start with this. Jason Kidd has been let go at Dallas. So looks like we got a new regime there. They want to start over, and I guess want to wipe the slate clean. Kyrie Irving has been perhaps maybe I don't know what's going to happen with that, but we'll see. But also on the Bulls side, Mark Stein reported that Jerry Stackhouse's name has been thrown in there as perhaps maybe a Bulls consideration for the Bulls head coaching job. What say you about those last two slates of news there?
I'll say about I'll start with Jason Kidd first. I know he saw the beginnings of the rebuild, which is still going on in Dallas firsthand. If he wants to go through that here in Chicago, okay, brother, the job is yours. But I don't there now with Jerry Stackhouse. Obviously, this will be his first head coaching job in the NBA. Of course, 18-year veteran in the NBA, played for various teams throughout the years. Of course, I know he coached in college at University of Vanderbilt. He served under Steve Kerr as an assistant coach these last few years with Golden State. If they want to hire Stackhouse, I'm not against it. Bryson Graham, your new head basketball operations guy, said this is a rebuild. So if he fits what Bryson Graham is looking for in terms of new attitude, setting the culture as they begin to rebuild this thing, I'm not against it.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like one of those things where, look, it didn't work out for him, at Vandy, which I'm sorry that didn't work out for him. But I don't know, what does that tell me that that he's going to go? The NBA is going to be the same thing. So I don't know if that would work here in Chicago, but we'll see. Now, as far as Jay Kidd's concerned, I mean, look, if he wants to wait another 2 or 3 years, to be a contender, I mean, hey, have at it. But like I said, I think he wants to go someplace where he has a chance to perhaps maybe win now. And unfortunately, the Bulls are nowhere near there just yet.
Yeah. One team, going back to the playoffs for just a second, one team that may have a coaching change in about a week or two is the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about it during our playoff preview show about a little bit over a month ago. Cleveland, they made a surprising run to the Eastern Conference Finals. I know they're currently down 2-0 as we're recording this, but Kenny Atkinson, unless they make a big charge and maybe force a Game 7, he could be out of a job. If that's the case, look out for these three names: Jason Kidd, Billy Donovan, or perhaps Tom Thibodeau. Those three candidates may be in line to take that Cleveland job if Kenny Atkinson gets the axe, if the Cleveland Cavaliers don't make hay and try to get back in the series against the Knicks.
So very interesting names there if that happens. So we'll have to wait and see with once they're finished up, whether it's going to be by the end of this long Memorial weekend or maybe early next week, who knows? But we'll see what happens there. Now, really quick break. Of course, we get our sports potpourri segment. We got some sports media news to talk about. Also, we remember NASCAR star Kyle Busch and his sudden passing. Also, the NHL playoffs. The Habs stole one in Charlotte, which I kind of figured that would happen, considering the fact that the Canes hadn't played in almost a couple of weeks. But also, can the Habs even their series with the Knights tonight? We'll have that and a whole lot more coming next. LaKeena, McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago Sports Potpourri 7 coming up right after this.
Poof!
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you live this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to the special edition of Second City Sports on this X in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, in SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow Matt Keenan McGee on the Twitter X, and he was going to IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. This is our last segment of the show for today and for this long extended holiday weekend. So if you have any last minute questions or comments of any other topics we've discussed thus far on today's show, drop them in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up of the screen for you.
Time to do that hockey, and we'll start with last night's game one between Montreal and Carolina. I know, Montreal dominated Carolina, and I kind of figured that this would happen. Like I said, considering the fact that the Canes hadn't played in almost 2 weeks, they looked rusty. They didn't look good. Montreal was the fresher team, and they definitely played like it. They scored 4 goals in the first period, and Carolina, that was kind of all she wrote there. Carolina just had no answer. Basically Montreal getting controversy with pretty much everybody. Guys like Alexandra Texler, then Dermidov, and of course Stavosky as well. So 6-2, I should say, the final there, and I'm sure Rod Brindamore was not very happy after this game.
I'm sure their legs today were a baggage claim. Mike Keenan did that a few times here in Chicago, and then one year at 94 with the Rangers after a bad performance. I have these skaters go through some ugly drills, but I digress. But speaking of Carolina, you mentioned they came out flat and it showed, and they weren't in that game from the outset, but I expected to have a bounce back performance tonight. But going back to tomorrow night, I should say, but going back to last night's game, both teams were 0 for 2 on the power play, but Montreal, as we talk about all the time in the playoffs, it's the little things that the get into trenches to win hockey games, dump it, chase, winning battles in the corners, block shots. Speaking of block shots, a plus 17 advantage for Montreal last night, 29-12. And they tied Carolina in faceoffs, won with 28. So it's the little things that help you win games in the playoffs. And Montreal did that last night.
Now we'll see what happens tomorrow night. But like I said, I'm expecting a better effort from Montreal, and from the Hurricanes. And if you're in Montreal, you're feeling pretty good right now. There was no way especially after that crazy 7 game where you wonder like where you were gonna be. But yeah, look, they did what they're supposed to do, and they were able to steal one down there just outside Charlotte. Now, speaking of tonight's game 2 of the Western Conference Finals between Vegas and Colorado. Vegas got the edge here on Wednesday with that game 4-2 in their opener. Look, we know these teams, they know each other well. Look, Vegas has pushed the Avs around. They're one of the few teams actually beat the Avs multiple times this year. So look, I think that Pavel Deferfiev's power play goal late in the second period.
He's been very good these playoffs.
Yes, he really has. And look, he showed you why. And look, that was kind of demoralizing if you're an Avs fan. That was definitely demoralizing when he got that power play goal right near the end of the second period, and it was kind of back and forth. You give Colorado credit for trying to make it a game. Gabriel Landeskog had a power play goal of his own, but unfortunately it wasn't enough as the Vegas Steelers game 1 out there in Denver. The crowd at Ball Arena was pretty much silent after that the empty netter from Nick Dowd.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, watching that game, especially that first period, Colorado was leading for a while in shots on goal. You kind of got that feeling, at least I did anyway, that Vegas were dominating. They weren't going, as we said on our last 2 shows, if you're Vegas, you're a much well-balanced team. You don't want to get in a track meet of a series with the Avalanche. They're going to beat you every time. The Vegas Golden Knights are a well-balanced team. They didn't turn the puck over much. I'm talking about Vegas. They stayed with the Avalanche. The Avalanche did have a couple of chances to go up 1-0 early, but they hit the post a couple of times. Sometimes that happens. That's the game of hockey. But like you mentioned, Vegas stayed with it, and they broke through finally in that second period. And check out these statistics, which helped Vegas pull off that game 1 win on the road. The power play 1 for 2 on the power play. Faceoffs 1 +9 advantage at 37-28. Block shots +12 advantage at 23-11.
Yeah, that's not good. So let's see what happens tonight. Like I said, I think the Avs, that's really going to be, Nate McKinnon, who, wasn't, he did have assists in that power play goal late, but like I said, you didn't really hear too much from him on Wednesday. So yeah, those guys are going to have to step up for Colorado, because you don't want to be going to Vegas down 0-2 if you're the Avalanche. So you better try to win this game tonight.
Yeah, I expect this to be a much tougher, much closer defensive game tonight. I think I can definitely see a 2-1, 3-1, 3-2 win by Colorado tonight. But if Vegas steals another one, it's going to be a tough order to have Colorado steal 2 games in Vegas, which is possible, but it's definitely going to be a tough task should Vegas steal another game at Ball Arena tonight. But I expect the Avalanche to play a much tougher game tonight. Set the tone physicality-wise early. The only few things that they did right, they led Colorado with a +7 advantage with the total hits at 31-24. But I expect this to be a 2-1, 3-1, maybe a 3-2 game by Colorado tonight, going into Vegas for games 3 and 4 next week.
Yeah, they got to play a lot tighter, and they got to be a little bit quicker because they got them. The Knights were able to get them on the trenches. So I'm wondering, like, if you're the Avs, you're gonna have to play a little bit tighter. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens with in game 2 coming up tonight. Like I said, I also expect the Avs, but the Avs have been too good this year. I know Nate McKinnon seems like he's on a mission, so I really think he's going to put the team on his back, and they're going to. I think they're going to win this game tonight. But hockey, you never know. We've seen weirder things happen, but I think they should be able to win this game tonight to even that series.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports Zone Chicago. City here with you on this Friday Funk edition. Happy Memorial Day to all our veterans, past and present, those of you that served our country in the armed forces, Navy, Marines, National Guards, to all those of you that are currently serving. Thank you very much for all of us here at Second City Sports and Sports Zone Chicago. To those of you that are veterans, also thank you very much for all of us here at Second City Sports and Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena, as we transition over to NASCAR, I got that text message heading home from work last night. Kyle Busch, one of the faces of the sport, suddenly passed away tragically last night.
Yeah, it was about just before 5:30 Central Time as Richard Childress Racing, of course, one of the top racing teams in all of motorsports, tweeted the news, and I think it caught everybody off guard, and because he had been feeling sick in the last race, and you thought that maybe it was just sinus infection, cold or what have you. I know he said that he was feeling a little bit out of it last week. I think we're seeing more details come out that he was I don't want to say passed out, but I guess apparently he was kind of like sleeping out there in that All-Star race last week, and he said that somebody said he was going to get a shot or something. I know COVID conspiracy theories. I know people will say, "Oh, well, did he get the shot or whatever? Did he get the booster or whatever?" Look, we're going to have to wait for the autopsy before we find out what happened. And I guess when his wife Samantha called 911, he was coughing up blood. So that's never a good sign there when you're doing that. But yeah, he sadly passed away he was only 41. He was a two-time Cup Series champion, also two-time Cup regular series champion, two-time Brickyard 400 winner, Coca-Cola 600, which is the race that he was hoping to gear up for because he had won back in 2018. And he was a pole sitter, of course, this year for the Daytona 500 and a couple other times too. And just seeing this and reading what happened is just it's just kind of scary, especially when what ended up being his last interview he did on Fox with Jamie Little, and it was just one of those things where you're just like, my goodness. And the guy that was at the prime of his life, I know his son Brexton's been racing too, junior stock car racing. He just turned, I think he just turned 11, I think. Just a couple of days ago. So yeah, that's even scarier when you read that news. But yeah, you feel for his brother Kurt, of course, is a big, one of the faces of NASCAR too, a great racer. Of course, he's been retired the last couple of years, but he was a great driver in his own right. Of course, Richard Childress, like I said, one of the top racing teams in all of NASCAR. Well, all of not just NASCAR, but all of auto racing. And you feel for the family, you feel for his teammates, you saw a couple of tweets from Jeff Gordon. I know they had their battles when the height of his career when he came to the scene, but just awful news all around.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be a NASCAR expert because I'm damn far from it. But hearing that name, I know as you mentioned, his name has been an impact, not just their whole family, but him in particular throughout the sport. We know that the dangers that come with being a NASCAR driver, but this situation is just totally different. But like you said, I feel for his young son. He has to grow up without a father, and unfortunately, life hits you with curveballs, but you have to continue to keep going, which I know that family will. But I know that the good folks at the Indianapolis 500 this coming weekend, Sunday in particular, when the race takes place, will have a special ceremony. I'm sure they'll have a special moment of silence for him as well. So like you said, this will be impacted not only just in NASCAR, but with the Indianapolis 500 and the F1 racing world as well.
Also, too, of course, NASCAR, their next stop's out in Charlotte. He actually did win that race a couple of times. So yeah, I know they're going to be, some nice tributes that are going to be made. And thoughts and prayers go out to the folks there, over there. I know we don't talk about motorsports that much, but we kind of figured that we owed it to any racing fans out there listening and watching us that we gotta pay tribute to one of the all-time greats, especially in today's world of NASCAR.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you, kicking it with you on this long Memorial Day holiday weekend. Thank you very much for joining us. If you like our program, please hype the video if you're right here on YouTube. That gives us the big boost that we need for our program and for Sports Zone Chicago going forward. If you want to watch any of our past episodes of this program, just go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels and check out our past episodes there on this nice long holiday weekend. Most people will have off enjoying it. Please check us out, spread the word, and we appreciate your support. Now back to our program. LaKeena has some sports media nuggets that you'd like to share with the rest of the class.
Now, with this talk about the college football playoff wanting to expand to 24 teams, I'm glad that folks are speaking out against it. I know ESPN's Reese Davis has, was the latest guide. He's been very vocal, especially once the feelers come out. I think a couple of, I think the Big Ten and I think also a couple of the big conferences said that they want to expand it. It's good to see that people are coming out and said that no, and Reese is one of the latest to say that during the College Game Day podcast, which he hosts, he said that it would devalue the regular and the postseason. So, I think he's right about that. And I know Booger McFarland said something on Get Up that, it'd be a participation trophy. Booger, did you forget that that there are bowl games with teams with 5-7 and 6-6 records? So you can't really exactly say that that's not a participation trophy, but maybe not the right point to use. But I think in this case, I think with what Reese said, of course, you guys can check the College Game Day podcast, however it's your podcast, of course. But the 24, and I am with him. The 24 team playoff is just too much. Keep it the way it is. Honestly, you could have kept it at 8 teams. That would have been fine. But 24, I think it's just way too much.
Yeah, we talked about a couple of weeks ago about the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament expanded to 76, which is greedy, but we all know it's about money and exposure at the end of the day. You know me, LaKeena, I'm not the world's greatest college football fan. I'll keep my eye on those 1 or 2 big games a week. And I actually enjoyed the playoff this past year, unlike in the first year where we didn't get that many compelling games before the national championship. But keep it the way it is with a certain amount of teams. Make those teams that are on the bubble earn it, and you'll get better competition. You're not going to get this. We haven't had that Cinderella upset unless I missed something. We haven't had that Cinderella upset in the college football playoff yet, but we have seen over these past 2 years that we matchups that we haven't normally see during a regular college football year, like Notre Dame and Indiana at Irish Stadium that we saw a couple of years ago. We've seen other matchups like Miami, Indiana last year for the national championship game, which turned out to be a very good game. So you do have it does create matchups that we normally don't see during the regular season. I am happy for that, but any expansion will definitely cheapen the regular season. And speaking of the regular season, LaKeena, I won't go through all the games, but some of the betting lines that are out right now, I think you'll be definitely interested in this. For week 0 of the college football year, Saturday, August 29th, Bill Belichick, as we call him on the show, North Carolina, there are 6.5-point underdogs against TCU. Thursday, September 3rd, my guy, Deion Sanders of Colorado, maybe they can surprise people this year. I don't know. Hopefully they have a quarterback, but they're 7-point underdogs at Georgia Tech. Friday, September 4th, the University of Miami, they are 21.5-point favorites at Stanford.
20.5. Oh God, yeah, that's a pretty big number. That's why I never pay attention to those lines, especially in May 22nd, because a lot of it can change. Yeah. You may get injury news, you may get other stuff too. A lot could happen between now and when these games kick off. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's just, to me, those things that stuff really doesn't matter. But hey, what do I know right now?
Yeah. Yeah, just a couple more, then we move on. Sunday, September 6th, Notre Dame and Wisconsin. I think those will be taking place at Lambeau Field, if I'm not mistaken. Wisconsin is minus 20. I'm reading this right, folks. Minus 20 against Notre Dame. Make that what you will. And then, of course, Monday, September 7th, on Labor Day, Florida State, there are 2.5-point underdogs against SMU.
Okay. All right, like I said, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm sure these lines will change as we go into. Well, no, why were what these lines? Like I said, the lines don't really matter at this point. We haven't even seen how these teams are gonna shake out yet. A lot of them are just now getting their practices. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. As you listen to Second City Sports on Sports, I've got LaKeena McGee sitting around with you. Still got a few more minutes here. Tom Brady is at it again, but it looks like Fox is going to be using them a lot during their World Cup coverage coming up in a few weeks. Brady will be partnered up with Zlatov and good Lord, I can never say this guy's name, but that's why I just call him Zlatan. But Zlatan Abrahimovic, of course, the Swedish striker, star striker, of course. For all you soccer fans out there, you guys know who he is. Of course, he was known for his acrobatic kicks and stuff like that. Won a couple of club titles, but he's been very visible as well. He and Brady are going to be doing a podcast together called Zlatan and Brady Goats and on Greatness, an hour plus conversation between the two of them. Of course, Zlatan is going to be doing some analyst work for the World Cup on Fox, like I said, in a few weeks. And of course, the YouTube channel, they're going to be on their YouTube channels and their social media channels starting this Tuesday, the same day that the U.S. national team will be announced. So I guess that's a very clever promotion there for Fox. But yeah, this should be. I saw a preview. It looks like something could be interesting. Two greats in their sports. Hamming it up and such. So yeah, it should be an interesting podcast.
Yeah, hopefully it'll bring folks like me in who I know soccer doesn't get as much attention in the United States that it does all over the world where it's called football. But, with the World Cup happening every 4 years, just like the Olympics, I know it's on Fox here in America. Fox is trying to milk everything out of it. And why not? I think this is a good business venture to see if this kind of thing will work. As you mentioned, Tom Brady signing that huge contract a couple years ago. Fox is going to use him every way possible to and get the most for their dollar out of him. But as far as soccer, I know you're a big soccer guy. Shout out to our guy Jason F. Kessner, he's going to get married down the line. By the way, congratulations to him. And of course, Evan F. Moore, a friend of the show, friend of Dean Davis as well. He's a big soccer guy, and I know you can speak more to the soccer than I can. But it seems like this year, especially here in America, is going to be the 250th birthday of the USA on July the 4th. But looks like maybe I'm wrong, LaKeena, but just looking at the map quickly before coming on the air, looks like it's going to be a heavy competitive field this year. Maybe US have a shot. Maybe, I don't know. But what say you, the soccer expert on this show?
Well, look, I'm no expert. Like I said, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but but yeah. I mean, it's 48 teams this year. It's 48 teams this year. They actually extended the field, so that was actually pretty cool that they did that. And of course, you're seeing teams like Haiti. They're coming in for the first time. They're going to be competing in the World Cup for the first time ever. You see stories like that. Scotland, who hasn't been in the World Cup in like almost 30 years. Curacao is also making their first appearance in the World Cup. So yeah, you've got a lot of teams. Of course, you got your big known teams. Of course, Brazil, and England. I know there was a lot of talk about their roster that was released yesterday. Of course, you've got France and Spain and Germany, of course, and Canada. Some people say Canada could be good this year. Switzerland, the U.S. I mean, they're in a good group. They're in Group D with Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey. They might be able to advance out of that. Especially the way it's set up this year with more teams being a part of it. But some interesting matchups here coming up. We won't go through it, but we won't have time. But yeah, it's going to be played in. There are going to be no games here in Chicago, unfortunately, folks. But I know there's been some stuff that come out about the tickets out there in New York and New Jersey. We won't talk about that either. But I think there's going to be. We'll see what the ratings are. I know Fox has been hyping it for like the last 2 months or so. So yeah, they're going to be, especially if it gets closer, there's going to be even more stuff that's going to be hyped about it. So yeah, we'll see how the ratings are, especially since it's going to be here in the States.
Yeah, hopefully I think we will get to see some competitive football or soccer, as we call it here in America, and hopefully USA does well. Just like we talk about all the time with the Olympics, whether it's winter, or definitely the Summer Olympics, whether it's an event that USA doesn't dominate in. I'm using air quotes, if you can see my air quotes there. Usually there are events that we don't dominate in or historically haven't done well in. The is in competition for a trophy or a medal or whatnot, we'll watch. And hopefully, the same mention, it's like the Olympics every year. Soccer fans really looking forward to this. Represent their fans represent their own home country, and you definitely get the best of the best. Just like Olympic hockey for the Winter Olympics, we saw that with USA and Canada, both the women's and the men's hockey. The ratings went through the roof for two traditionally historic countries that excel in hockey. So hopefully I think we will get to see that in soccer, and hopefully the USA men's soccer team will respond to the challenge. I know they haven't done well over these last few tournaments, but hopefully with it being on America's soil, that the tide would turn. Hopefully.
Yeah, I know Brady's been very vocal about the fact that the U.S. needs to have to find like their, Messi's or Zlatan or Mbappe or something, guys like that. So, and look, I mean, he also owns the Birmingham City, which is an English soccer club out there in England. So that's why, he's been a big soccer fan. I think his youngest son, plays soccer as well. So, for a few years anyway. So yeah, this is where like his love of soccer has been around for a long time. But yeah, I mean, it's only interesting to see how this goes and how they're going to promote this. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Fox. Like I said, I prefer ESPN's World Cup coverage. That's just me. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Fox does with their soccer coverage. Is going to have another World Cup.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you. We still have a couple minutes left before we wind down the show for this long extended weekend of Memorial Day. Just a quick announcement. We will not be on the air on Monday due to the holiday. We'll celebrate it with the rest of you. We'll be back next Wednesday for a special edition of Second City Sports. We'll not be on Monday, so we'll be back on next Wednesday, and then of course we'll be back on our normal schedule on Friday. So no show on Monday, but we'll be back on for a special edition on Wednesday, and of course our normal show on Friday. So that's our schedule for next week. We won't be on the air on Monday because we'll be enjoying the holiday with you guys. One last question to wrap up, LaKeena, going back to baseball. I know baseball attendance, especially here in the Midwest and up and down the East Coast, has always been an iffy, tricky bad because of the weather. But now the weather is starting to heat up. I'll bring you back to Chicago. Of course, the Cubs are hosting the Astros. Shout out Sean Sierra this weekend. And of course, the Cubs always get big crowds, but I want to take it to the South side. And no matter what happens with this series against the Giants this weekend, LaKeena, I think that the White Sox, the question is, will they get big crowds starting next week with the longest homestand of the year? I'm going to the game out there on Monday. I think it's going to be a big crowd, one, because of the Chase Maedroff bobblehead. Number two is Memorial Day is going to be 80 degrees. So I think you're going to get some people out for the game on Monday. But for the rest of the homestand, going into next weekend against Detroit, do you, assuming that the White Sox continue to play this brand of baseball, do you expect to have a little bit more of a juice going to Sox Park next week?
Yeah, I think there's no reason why it shouldn't be. I mean, they played well. I know, leaving this series against Seattle, in Seattle out of it, but I think they've been playing very well. I think if they do well this weekend against the Giants, as they should, I think there shouldn't be a problem. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think they should be okay, record wise and such. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the crowd's going to be this weekend, especially since it's going to be warm if we got the long weekend and such. So yeah, I think the White Sox should be okay. We see the Cubs, of course, the Cubs are the Cubs. Even when they're not good, they get big numbers. But they've had big numbers. There was definitely some huge numbers for the White Sox series out there at G-Ray. The TV rates are actually pretty good too. I know some people. I know our buddy Jeff Agris from the Sun-Times tweeted those numbers, and I think yes, some of it was because of the White Sox, but I think a lot of it's because of people like me who can't get CHSN. I think that played a part of it too. So
Marquee as well.
Yeah, and Marquee too. So I think it could be a little bit of both. Not we'll see, but yeah, I think the White Sox should be okay here, but yeah, this should be. Yeah, like I said, with this long homestand, they should be okay in this series. So we'll have to, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think they should be good here. They should be okay.
Yeah, I'll piggyback just to wrap up here. I'll piggyback on what Lawrence Holmes from 680 The Score said on Fox's Chicago Sports Tonight, the Sunday wrap-up show. He said this, and I'm just paraphrasing what he said. Over the last few years, you've seen fans like myself, wear White Sox jerseys of players from the past, whether it's the 05 team or Carlton Fisk or some of the other legends like Minnie Minoso from back in the day. But I'll tell you firsthand, and Lawrence said this too on the program, to see fans wear more Munetaka Murakami jerseys. He rightfully so. He's one of the top leaders in home runs in baseball in his rookie year. You're starting to see Sox fans now wear Costa Montgomery jerseys or flat-out jerseys. You're starting to see a couple of those young stars starting to pop. And you're starting to see just a little bit, not much so yet, but you're starting to see a few Miguel Vargas jerseys. So the White Sox got the attention of the baseball fan, and especially on the South Side. If they continue to play this brand of baseball, you're going to see a whole lot more of those jerseys, especially those three players I just mentioned.
Yeah, I think Murakami's jerseys already. I think they're the top selling jersey already this year for the White Sox. So not surprised there. We'll see what happens. I also want to give a special shout out real quick, going back to sports media news. Our buddy, friend of the program, Danny Parkins, of course, formerly of FS1. Now with FS1, formerly of 670 The Score / 104.3 The Score. Of course, their new FM dial, but $805,000 for their radiothon that shatters the last 2 years. Of course, for a cure to cancer. Of course, if you guys remember, Danny lost a brother to glioblastoma, of course, the super rare brain disease, and he's been a big cancer advocate ever since. And they've been doing this radiothon the last couple years, and I don't know how Danny does it every year, but he looks great. He sounds great. Looks, of course, if you guys remember, when we were doing our show over at the old CMS Chicago State Tree Studios. He was guest speaker. Gary, he was nice enough to come in and hung out with Nisa, and I think our buddy Jason Pfeiffer. What up, Jason? Of course, hopefully I know he and his family are doing well, and also Romy Richardson as well. They're both doing well, but he was nice to come in and visit and chat with us for a few minutes, But yeah, so I know this has been like his baby the last few years, especially since he was still at The Score, and I'm glad it's been doing well. And they shattered in this economy. If you can get that kind of money for cancer research, that's a win right there. So congrats to him and The Score folks for being able to shatter the last couple of years of the records of the radiothon.
Yeah, great job all around by the staff, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. I know Marquee Sports Network carried some of that as well yesterday. And I know there's a long list of guests. For those of you that missed, you can check it out on their social media pages. But just a big support to Miss Diane Patel. She's the traffic reporter for ABC7 here in Chicago. Of course, she lost her husband over a year ago to brain cancer. Of course, Michael Smith, former ESPN personality and writer, he appeared on the program yesterday, giving the story of how his wife passed away from cancer as well. So, for those of you that haven't checked it out, check it out on the Score's official YouTube page. Both their interviews were very touching.
Very, very, yeah. I heard both of their interviews, and it's just it'll definitely leave a tear to your eyes, but also give you hope as well. So it wasn't able to save their loved ones, but hopefully you'll spare a loved one, hope a friend or a loved one battling through this as well. So so if there's still time to donate too. So so if you guys I know they're going to be doing that throughout the Cubs game, but so just a great showing by the folks at The Score and also all the audience. So you can go back and watch it too on the replays, like Sid said.
Yeah. All right.
You can follow McGee McGee on the Twitter, XQ's getting the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And please hype the video if you can on YouTube so we get bigger and better numbers, because we know that you love this program. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday, except for this Monday because of the holiday, from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, right?
And no worries though. Of course, yes, we're going to be off on Monday, but you can use this long 3-day weekend to catch up on some of our previous episodes. So if you miss a guest or our discussions or what have you, no worries. You can catch up. They're all right there. The replays. You can catch replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellas, and so much more. So you can use this holiday to catch up and listen to our great content on Sports Chicago's YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
And of course, thanks again for joining us today. We will be back on Wednesday, so enjoy the baseball, the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs, the college baseball and college softball. I know they're into it. Also, good luck to the Northwestern Lady Wildcats. They're going for their 11th national title in lacrosse. So both men's and women's lacrosse title games will be this weekend. So make sure you guys check that out as well. And all the other great sports that's coming up too. So so enjoy this holiday weekend and be safe out there. For Sid, I'm LaKeena of Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, and we'll see you guys next week.
Go Sox, holla!